Hello, once again, I welcome you back to my YouTube channel. Today, I'm going to be discussing an amazing tool called Kompose. 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 And before we go into discussing this tool, I will first want to let us talk about Docker-Compose. Docker-Compose is an amazing tool that allows you to run multiple containers at a time with a single command. You can bring up multiple container and you can bring down multiple container just with a single command using your Docker Compose. But after spinning up these containers, what happens? You will agree with me that Docker Compose is not the most efficient tool to manage your container after they have been spinned up. Therefore, Docker Compose is understand not to be very effective in managing your containers, especially in the production environment. Yes, it is okay for, at the development stage for you to spin up containers and run container, test containers. But when it comes to deploying them into the production environment, then Docker Compose is not the most efficient tool to do that. In that case, you are going to be needing a container orchestrator to manage your containers. And the common containers orchestrator is Kubernetes, while some people also use OpenShift. But Kubernetes is the most common and most used in the industry currently. There comes in the Kompose for Kubernetes that we're going to be discussing in this video. So what is Kompose for Kubernetes? As I'm going to show you in this diagram, you already have an existing Docker-Compose file that you have used to, run multiple containers, just like what you have here. You can hear here is running about, it's just running a container. And for you to deploy these containers in an orchestrator like Kubernetes, you will need to change or you need to convert your existing Docker Compose file into Kubernetes manifest file. And that is where your Compose come in. So your Compose for Kubernetes is a conversion tool that enable you to seamlessly convert your existing Docker Compose file into Kubernetes manifest file, where you can easily deploy your containers and orchestrate them efficiently. Just like I do most of the time, I'm going to be running you through a few lines just for you to understand why or the importance of Compose. So if you look at the diagram on the screen, on the left hand, on the black background, that's where you have your existing Docker files, Docker Compose file, and you want to transfer them into your Kubernetes where you have the deployment, you have the storage, you have the service. You can see each component of this Docker Compose file will now be transformed into Kubernetes manifest file for each of the services, for each of the components: deployment, storage, config map, services. For everything that is contained in your Docker Compose file will be transformed into Kubernetes manifest file with just a single command. Now, what is Compose? It is fair to say Compose is the Docker-Compose of Kubernetes. That is a very fantastic way to describe it. Compose is the Docker-Compose of Kubernetes. And what is Compose? This is just an online definition. It's a Compose is a conversion tool for Docker-Compose to container orchestrators, such as Kubernetes. And I further said Compose is used for Kubernetes to easily migrate existing Docker-Compose application to what? To a Kubernetes environment. That is, you must have an existing Docker-Compose file, and you are going to easily and timelessly change this existing Docker-Compose file into Kubernetes manifest file, as we are going to see in the hands-on. And why will you want to do that? These are the key points. One, it simplifies migration. If you already have a working Docker-Compose setup, Compose allows you to quickly deploy it onto Kubernetes by translating your Compose file to Kubernetes YAML without manual configuration. I said we're going to see it. Then, what another key point that you need to notice there is the familiar syntax. Okay, because the syntax that is used in your Docker Compose is almost the same as the one that will be used on your Compose for Kubernetes when the manifest file uh, must have been transformed. And also, it make it easier for a beginner in Kubernetes not to go through a steepy learning curve. Okay, so it is easier for you to just change what you have. For someone coming from um, a Docker Compose background, it can easily move to Kubernetes just by transforming those files onto Kubernetes YAML file, as we are going to see in the hands-on. So if we go ahead now, I have this existing repository that contains, I have already cloned this repo, and we are going to be working with it to see how we can use Compose to change an existing Docker Compose file into Kubernetes YAML file. So I have gone ahead to clone this repo. So we're just going to jump into our VS Code. Let me just open VS Code. I'm going to open a new window. Okay. This is our VS Code on the new window. And like I told you, I've already cloned that repository. So I'll just go and pull up that repo. I think it's here. And I think it's here. Okay, so this is the repository. And this is a Docker. This repository contains a Docker Compose file. And what is this file doing? This file is going to run through containers, a database, and a WordPress application. You can see it. You can see the services on line 2. You can see I'm going to be running the database. And what is that database? It's what is a MariaDB database. You can see it on line 4. The image I'm going to be using is MariaDB database. And I'm also going to be running a WordPress image. And I'll be pulling a WordPress latest image from the Docker Hub. So this is a simple application that is being set up on the Docker Compose file. So I'm going to open the terminal. I'm going to open the terminal here. And I like to use my Ubuntu WSL. So we have a WordPress application already. Okay. And so on this terminal, I've already installed my Docker, and I've installed Docker Compose on the application. As you can see, if I just type Docker, it should be able to give me those relevant command. And if I clear and I do Docker Compose, I think Docker-Compose is already already have them installed. So in case for those of you who want to follow through, you can just go to Docker um, um, documentation and install Docker and also install Docker-Compose. So first, I'm going to use Docker-Compose to run this container, and we're going to see how it works. So of course, like I said, Docker-Compose will allow you or enable you to run multiple container um, at the same time. So we are going to be running these two container, the MariaDB container and the WordPress container, just all at a go by using one simple command, docker compose up, then Ivan D, so that we can run it in the data mode. And I click enter, and you can see it will go ahead. It's going to pull the images from Docker Hub, and it's going to run them as containers. So it's currently pulling image. Now it's pulling the container. He will create. You can see it. He has created a network for WordPress. He has created volume, and he has pulled the image for WordPress, and also pulled the image for MySQL, and run a container with it. So if you look at it, so let's check what are the container that are running. Docker-Compose PS. So I'm trying to see, you can see that two containers are running. You can see under the image name, you can see MariaDB is running and WordPress is also running. And if you look at it, it is exposed on the WordPress container is running on port 80. So that means I can access this application on port 80. So I'm going to go into my browser, and of course, this is the local. You can see it 0.00. So it's going to be running on my local host. So I'll just pull up my browser, and I will type localhost. So type localhost on port 80. And you can see we are able to access the WordPress application. Anyway, we don't intend to set it up. So this is just to show that we are able to, we are able to use Docker Compose to run the application and access the application on our exposed port. Now let's go back to our terminal. So I'm going to bring down this container now. I'm going to bring them down, and you can just do it by running one command, docker compose down, and it's going to go ahead and destroy all the application. And of course, if I go back to my app and I refresh it, I shouldn't be able to connect anymore. You can see it is unable to connect again because I have destroyed the container. Now, what do I want to do now? I want to go ahead now and convert this Docker Compose file into Kubernetes manifest file. And we're going to use it to deploy the same WordPress application onto Kubernetes. So let's go ahead and do it. So now I'm going to clear my screen, and I'll just bring up so I'm inside the Docker Compose file, which contain the application. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and compose and convert my Docker Docker Compose file into Docker Compose. Now, before we do that, we need to install Compose. We need to install Compose tool into this. How do we do it? It's pretty simple. You can just go ahead to the Docker Compose documentation. I'm going to include the link below so you can follow through. So this is the Docker Compose. This is the Compose documentation, and you have all the various commands for different operating system. So in my own case, I'm using Linux, Ubuntu Linux. So I'll just copy this and follow and I'm going to follow what the process. It's just a single command, and you're going to run the permission as well, and then you will be fine. So I've already installed it, but I'm going to put the link in the below underneath the video so that you can follow through. So you come here and install Kompose. So after you install Kompose, then you need to now go into how do I know if I've installed Kompose? I'll just type Kompose and it should be able to give me a response letting me know that what do I need to do. So Kompose is already installed. So how do you convert the Docker YAML file, the Docker-Compose file into Kubernetes manifest file? We are going to run the command compose convert, that's F, then the name of the YAML file. And what is the YAML file? Let me clean and just show you what the YAML file is. The Docker Compose file, ls. You can see the Docker Compose file is compose.yml. That is the one that contains the file. Let me cut it out so that you can see. Cut compose. You can see this is the same content that we just ran above here. So we are going to be converting this file into Kubernetes manifest file. So I'm going to come here and write compose convert -f, then what is the compose, which is compose file, then in which directory do I want to create the manifest files? So you have to specify the name of the directory where you want to specify it. So I'm going to do -out, which is the output, and I want it to go into, let me call it Kubernetes manifest. So this is the name of the file where I want the converted Docker Compose file to be created. So, and if you hit enter, sorry, did I get it right? Oh, sorry, I said Kubernetes manifest. Sorry, let me just try and put it again. I want it to create that for me. Okay, so the file already exists. Let me put one, create it. Oh, yeah, I want it to create it in multiple files. So just a minute. He has actually created it, but I want you to, if you look at it, he has created a file, but he's having everything in the file, and I don't want it. He's having all the components in the same file. If you see it here, there is service, there is a WordPress container, there's deployment, but I don't want you to do it that way. I want you to create individual file in individual component in a separate file. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this file. Just a moment, please. I'm going to delete the file. I'm going to remove K8 -rf, remove K8 and K8s. So I've removed them. I'm going to clear the screen, and it's the same command, but let me see what the command is, if I'm writing the correct command. Yeah, Kompose. Yeah, that is what I have. Let me use it. It's the same thing, but I just want to be sure I'm having the correct thing. So I'm going to just paste this. Compose convert -f Docker Compose into Compose manifest. Let's do it. Unable to create this. No such file. directory exists. So what is going on here? Just a minute. I'm trying to check. Okay, I have my Docker Compose. Okay, okay, sorry. I used if you look at it, I used the wrong command. I was saying docker-compose.yml. That is not what it is. What we have is just Docker. If you look at it, if you look at our ls, what we have is what? Docker is compose.yml. So our command is going to be compose.yml. Going to be it's going to be compose.yml. Okay. And I want it to be inside compose manifest. I hope that works now. Yeah. Kubernetes manifest created. Yeah. I want it to, yeah, I want it to create it in, yeah, I don't want it to create it this way. I don't want it to create, it's supposed to create it in different file. No, I don't want it this way. Yeah, it's supposed to create each file independently, even though I'm okay with what has created here, but that is not what I want. So let me do this. Let me, I want you to create it in here. Okay, okay, okay. So that is, I think that is better, but so you just allow me to clear this, to delete all this file, and I'm going to explain uh, what I want to do. So let me remove, I'm going to remove the files again, and we can explain it. Remove, that's RF. I want to remove all the file. Database, data. I want to remove DB service. I want to remove WordPress deployment. I want to remove WordPress service. I also want to remove DB deployment. Yeah, I want to remove all this. So let me clear it and let me look at what we have. Okay, I still want to remove. I still want to remove Compose. I also want to remove Compose 1 and output. And also, yeah, so we are fine now. What we have left is just readme and the compose file. So now I'm going to use the same command, but I will want it to create the to create those file in the root directory. So I'll just go back. I'll just go back here. So instead of creating a file, I'll just put a period so that it's going to create the same file in the what? In the root directory. Yeah. So I'll just click OK. And you can see it now that all the file has been created. You can see it has created. You should look at the right hand on the left hand side here. It has created Docker Compose has created from the Docker Compose file. Compose has created persistence volume, database deployment, database service, WordPress YAML, and WordPress service. So all this has been what has been created inside here. So if you look at ls, that's A, you can see that all this has been created. You can see it, database, deployment, service, and WordPress deployment and WordPress service. So these are all the files that are that are required by Kubernetes to deploy those containers. So now that we have it, we are going to go ahead and deploy this file. Now, I'm going to be deploying this into Kubernetes Minikube. I'm going to be using Minikube in this case. So that means you need to install Minikube. If you don't know how to install Minikube, just go to the documentation. I'm also going to include the link down below. So just go into the documentation of Minikube. It's a very simple installation. Just click on the get started and you'll be able to install. These are the requirements for you to install it, and you go and select which operating system do you want. If you're using Windows, Mac, or Linux, in case I'm using Linux, all you just need is to copy this and run the command, and then you'll be able to use Minikube. Minikube is a lightweight Kubernetes cluster that's usually run a cluster with one node just for your test or development environment. So now let's go back to our VS Code and let's check our Minikube. Let's check the status. Like I told you, I've already installed it. So Minikube status. So Minikube is what is stopped. So we need to start it. So Minikube start. So we are starting Minikube now, and it's starting. We're starting Docker container for Minikube. And if you also go to my Docker-Compose, you will see that the Minikube has started running here. Okay, that is the Minikube container. This is the Docker desktop. So Minikube is running, and we can check it again with status. Minikube status, and you can see it's a Minikube is running, type control plane, host running, everything. The kubelet is running, API server is running, and the kubeconfig is also running. So now we can go ahead and deploy our manifest file into Kubernetes. And what you just need to do is to run a single command, and that command is kubectl apply -f. And don't forget, all the manifest file that we have created are inside this root, so we don't have to put the path again. So I'll just put period. But before I do that, now let me go to the service, because I would like to access my WordPress application from the browser. So I would have to add. Don't forget, in the Docker-Compose file, we did not include the port there because the port was automatically exposed. But in your Kubernetes, when a container is being deployed there, you have to create a service through which you are going to access that container. And the common one we have the cluster IP, which is meant for the internal communication of the cluster. And then we have node port, which allow you to access your pod directly on the node. And we also have what do we call it? We also have elastic load balancer or load balancer, and we also have ingress. So, but in this case, we are going to be accessing it through node pod just for demo sake. So I'll have to come and edit the service. So on that spec, I will add type. Okay, I'll add type, which is node port, and I need to add the node port. Okay, I'll have to have the node port. So I'll just come here and right now, kube apply -f period, and and you can see that all the services have been created. Okay, all the services are being created. Service WordPress is created. So if I go to my Kubernetes now and I said kubectl get nodes, you can see that Minikube is running, and let's get all. Kubectl get all. So if you look at it from here, if you look at my service, you can see WordPress is running, it has a deployment and it has a replica set. So I will also go ahead, I will clear my screen and I will check um, kubectl get service. And you can see this is the WordPress service on Notepad, and it is exposed on port 80 on port 3008. So how do we access this port? Due to some configuration on my computer, I'm going to use port forwarding. Port forwarding will allow me to what to access this application. So I'm going to do port forwarding to port 8080, and there's a command that we're going to use to do that. This is my port forwarding command. I'm also going to include the command down below. So I will forward it to port 80. I have to keep the terminal up. So I'm going to go now and access my application through what? Through this port 8080. So I will go to my terminal. Sorry, I will go to my, don't forget before we access it through port 80, but now I'm going to be accessing it on localhost on port 8080. And now I'm able to access my application. So it is very easy for you to convert your existing Docker-Compose file into a Kubernetes manifest file using Kompose. And it is an amazing tool. It saves you time, and it does not, you don't have to go through a lot of configuration or writing manifest. Imagine if you want to write documentation for your persistent volume, write for your deployment, write for service, write for WordPress deployment, write for WordPress service. This will take a lot of time, but using the powerful capability of your Compose, you can easily change your um, Docker Compose file into Kubernetes manifest file using Compose for Kubernetes. So this is what I want to discuss with us today. I believe you have learned one or two things. And if you like this video, kindly click like and subscribe so that you can get an update each time we release a new video. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for spending your time with me, and I will see you in another video. Thank you. Peace.